Good morning and welcome to our daily devotional from Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'm Patrick Horn. Very glad to have you with us on this Friday, February the 28th, the last day of February in 2025. As we look at the passage from Luke that is an account of the transfiguration of Jesus, and as we prepare for Transfiguration Sunday this Sunday, we're going to look at the last four verses of this passage from Luke chapter 9. So this will be Luke chapter 9, verses 33 through 36. And so we're picking up in the middle of the story here. And Moses and Elijah have made their appearance as Jesus' face has changed and his clothes have appeared dazzling white. And so we're picking up here in verse 33 as Moses and Elijah are departing from him. So verse 33, just as they were leaving him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make three dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah," not knowing what he said. While he was saying this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were terrified as they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone, and they kept silent, and in those days told no one any of the things they had seen. Well, a very strange story indeed, and two questions that stick out to me in these four verses. One question is, why does the text point out that Peter didn't know what he was saying when he said to Jesus, "Let's build little dwellings for each of you"? And then the other question is why they kept silent about this story and didn't talk to anyone about it. Another kind of strange feature of the story. The first question, I think, is a little easier to answer because, well, for one, we know that in the Gospels, there's a lot of emphasis placed on how much the disciples did not understand, particularly in the Synoptic Gospels, but also in the Gospel of John. But in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we get repeatedly statements about how little the disciples understood what was going on around Jesus, how little they understood his teachings, his ultimate work. They, of course, had no idea what he was talking about when he spoke of his, or at least hinted of his impending death. And here, Peter does not come off looking very well at all either. And the primary source of his misunderstanding seems to be a kind of manic need to hold on to this moment, this high moment. And of course, that's something we can all relate to when we have a wonderful or great experience or visiting with friends. We often don't want to let go of that to say goodbye, to move on, because we know the next thing in our lives won't be as enjoyable or as important or as significant. And so we can identify with Peter here. But so he didn't know what he was saying because he didn't understand that this was a moment that they couldn't hold on to any longer, but had to let go of. And then the other question, I think, maybe a little more challenging, and that's about keeping silent, because the story is told clearly as a witness to the divinity of Jesus, that is his association with God. And so it's told in order to confirm that Jesus is from God. And now, in that current situation, they did not speak of it. They didn't talk about it. So it's kind of strange, but I think also understandable to a degree, especially if you think that if you sort of acknowledge and embrace that they didn't really understand what was going on in the life of Jesus, that there were things that were beyond their understanding. And it's probably best not to speak. Maybe Peter didn't speak of this. He normally spoke of everything, but maybe he didn't speak in this case precisely because he was embarrassed about how he spoke up and didn't understand what was going on, and maybe that was part of the reason that he kept quiet about it. Clearly, this story or some version of these events were told later and recorded here in Luke and in also both Matthew and Mark. Uh, a central story about Jesus being from God, and about how this is a transformative moment, but a moment that we can't hang on to, that we have to let go of and move on with our lives. Let's close with this word of prayer from W.E. Orchard. O God, who guides our minds when we think our thoughts are all our own, and who holds our hand even when we choose to walk alone, may we know that thou hast a purpose in our lives and are leading us safely and surely home. Gone are the days when we were content to live for the passing hour and the transient joy. The swift passage of our lives has taught us not to rely on those things. Darkness gathers around us, and our gladness sometimes departs us. The habitations we've built do not make a home for our souls, and we feel a desolation has fallen upon us. And though our day is far spent, we have set out to seek the city that has foundations. We are wearied with the knowledge of which we were once so proud. We have forgotten what we set out to find. We know all things except the truth. We followed gleams of light, but they faded away, and our hopes have often failed us. We guided our path by the stars, but they sank below a horizon where we could not follow them anymore. And now our eyes wait for thee, the only light of creation. Though thou leadest us only to a cattle shed, we will follow humbly. Though we find only a child lying in a manger, we will worship reverently. No pride shall blind our eyes, no fears shall turn us back, if thou thyself will lead us on. Amen. Thank you for joining us this morning from Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'm Patrick Horn, and I hope that you have a very good day. Goodbye.